Megan?
Ready.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back. It's still October 1, 2020, Thursday. It's 10:35 in the morning, and the commissioners have come out of executive session. No decisions being made. And now we're moving on with the reports on external boards and commissions. And I just want to bring up real quick, we're going to talk about this, I hope, in depth a little bit. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife, I've been in contact with Brad Thompson regarding archaeological digs and such, regarding information we've received via email from a citizen, young Tibetan. And so we'll talk about that in greater context in a little bit. But Commissioner Menser, I'll turn to you, sir. Do you have anything you'd like to report back on commissions and external boards?
I do have one. I was going to bring this up. Well, I forgot about today's check-in. This is a good time to do it. So one of the boards, two of the boards, three of the boards I sit on relate to the Chehalis Basin. And there's the Chehalis Basin strategy, which is trying to find a way to come up with a win-win that will reduce flooding damage in the basin, as well as improve, aquatic species habitat. So that process was kind of just to kind of catch you guys up. The EIS for the dam, which was was one of the proposals, came out in June. It was looked at over the summer. The Quinault and Chehalis tribes said, we don't think that you've done enough to evaluate local actions, alternatives to the dam, and how far we could get to mitigate flooding. So we would like you to look at this. The governor's office took up that position essentially and said to the Chehalis Basin Board, which was responsible for developing this strategy and some recommendations to the legislature, said, stop. I want 6 months worth of evaluation of local, basically doing what the Quinault tribe asked for, which is take a deeper dive on non-dam alternatives to control flooding. And so they had a deadline of yesterday to come up with that plan. And the plan, and I was able to clear my schedule in the morning and sit in on the meeting yesterday to hear exactly where things stand. What they've come up with is a 6-month plan to develop these, evaluate non-dam flood control alternatives. They're calling it a local actions program. They're creating 2 advisory groups, one for technical, like to evaluate, okay, here's a strategy, how much flooding benefit would we get from that? And then a second would be an implementation group, which would take the strategies and say, okay, how hard would this be to implement from a policy perspective? And the facilitator of that board, which is Jim Kramer, asked me earlier this week who would want to represent Thurston County on these 2 subcommittees. We don't have a formal seat on the Chehalis Basin Board, but we're obviously a big part of the overall thing, and I sit on the Flood Authority. So I forwarded that to Jennifer and Josh just so they knew that this request had come in. I didn't know. I just kind of wanted to hear from from an initial perspective whether they had anybody or had the capacity or had any interest, etc. Josh and Jennifer wanted to just follow up with me. We had the meeting this morning, and they felt that they had somebody that could meet the requirements. The requirements are basically 4-hour meetings and a public outreach event is the time commitment. So 16, 18 hours. They thought they had somebody for the technical committee. We weren't really sure about the implementation committee because most of these strategies are going to involve Grays Harbor and Lewis County actions, not Thurston actions. So I sent an email to Jim Kramer to say, I think we may have somebody that could do the technical committee, but I'm curious what kind of people do you think are going to sit on the implementation committee so that we could talk about, maybe we don't even sit on that committee. I don't know. But I just wanted to now bring this to the board for so that you guys could hear what the request is and whether the board could give a thumbs up to, I think it's Mark Beaver that Jennifer had slotted as our kind of flooding expert that might be able to sit on the technical committee if the board is willing to have them do that. I just like to make sure that, from my perspective, this is an opportunity to see if a non-dam alternative could address flooding issues. I personally agree with the Quinault tribe that wasn't really fleshed out. And maybe it can't, maybe it can. I don't know the answer to that, but I just want to make sure that this 6 months is used productively for the basin to get the answer so that the legislature can do the right thing. So I would support Mark working on this, and then maybe we'll talk about an implementation. Maybe I could sit on the implementation committee. I don't know. I don't. Jim, I'm going to wait for Jim to tell me what kinds of people he thinks would be the best for that committee. But that's kind of the overview, and Josh definitely wanted the board's blessing before he committed any staff resources to that, and I agree with him. That makes sense to me too. So there it is.
Gary, any thoughts?
No, I just go along with Ty. He's been on there for.
Man, I agree. It makes perfect sense to have some representation.
Okay. Well, I'll tell Josh that we give thumbs up to Mark working on the technical committee, and then I'll bring it, once I hear back from Jim, maybe on Tuesday morning, I'll bring it back, any input I get on the implementation subcommittee. I'm just not sure what kind of person from Thurston would make, I don't want to waste our staff's time. So if it doesn't seem like we could have a useful voice there, then maybe we just sit that one out. But I'll report back on that one.
Okay. Do you have others to report on?
That was the main one. I wanted to ask Gary how the Thurston Thrives went since he sat in for me there.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, Thurston Thrives, I didn't think was anything exceptional. I think I mentioned maybe yesterday that, something to do with the train trestle. That was the only unique thing that was brought up. The rest of it is just kind of staying on course.
Okay.
There was nothing special about it.
I didn't miss anything too
No.
monumental. Okay.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 items. One, I brought very, very at the initial part of this meeting, and I waited for Commissioner Everett to return. And that's regarding U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the HCP and the emails from our citizen, Jan Tibetan, who's visited us many times. And regarding what he is in his email, that he would need to be going through an archaeological survey to cost the tune of about $5,000 on his property. So I've been in contact with Brad Thompson this morning and via text. And he said there's some misinformation out there. And he's meeting with Josh, probably about another 45 minutes to discuss this issue. Then I'm going to follow up with Brad Thompson tomorrow morning because he and our schedules just don't coincide today regarding that. And I know the commissioner's aware of it, but initially Brad says this is not going to impact the schedule or timeline of the county's HCP, but we just need to further discuss any ramifications if there's another item being added to the process and or an additional cost to the citizen or the county or whomever. So it's a work in progress. I just want you to know, since you're receiving the emails from Mr. Tibetan as well, that it's being addressed at this level, a very high policy level. Any questions regarding that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you for addressing that.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
I guess the misinformation sounds like it's taken place amongst Brad's staff, though, isn't it?
I don't know. I haven't talked with staff, or I haven't talked with Brad yet, so I don't want to spread any.
Because some of the information that Jan had sent up was correspondence with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and they're the ones that were telling him, that this was to take place. So I'm kind of hoping they get it straightened out so they don't put additional burdens on our constituents.
Yeah, I'll follow up as soon as I talk with Josh today and with Brad tomorrow. I'll follow up with the board.
Thanks.
Yep. Another one I have is the Capitol Lake, the Chutes Estuary Executive Work Group. And we have, I've met with Jeff Gadman, the treasurer, along with DES and Floyd Snyder, the consultant group. doing the research on this. And there's a funding matrix that's being proposed that would go out to all jurisdictions that are involved with the lake itself. And there's a self-scoring assessment that needs to be done, or need to be doing, regarding how much does your jurisdiction contribute to the issues at the lake, and how does each jurisdiction benefit from the lake being cleaned up and or an estuary and then there's a whole mathematical algebraic formula put to that to determine how much each jurisdiction will contribute to the cost of the lake. And we have some major concerns with that, or conflicts with that self-assessment. And how do we marry the county or taxpayers to this issue when we have no idea what it's going to cost? We have no idea what it's going to cost. So that's still a work in progress. It's being dealt with at a very high level as well. And that was that regarding the Capitol Lake Deschutes estuary. I sit on the governor's task force for independent investigation of police use of force. I'm not actually on the task force. I'm on the advisory group advising the task force, who will put recommendations together for the governor to put legislation together for the next session on what any independent investigation in the state of Washington on police use of force will look like. And we have a meeting this afternoon and another one next Tuesday that I'll miss. And I think there's about 3 or 4 more putting this together. It's exceedingly complex and somewhat controversial and all over the map, but it's being honed in now and refined as to what this group will look like, what kind of parameters will they have, what kind of legal authority will they have, and who, each jurisdiction, how much will they contribute, what are their expectations, and what are the task force expectations on the individual law enforcement organization. Still a lot of work yet to be done, but it's fascinating work. I sit on the WASAC's professional or county professional development committee, and what we're working on is creating a professional development curriculum for newly elected officials. That would be an introduction to county government. It would cover public records, OPMA, effective public meetings, budget and finance, public innovation, public involvement, and citizen relations, ethics and public service, risk management. There's a whole list of topics that newly elected would go through, and over a 3, 6, maybe a 9-month period, we're still defining the time period, then that elected would receive a certification saying they're certified as a professional development, county professional development certificate. And then there's several elected classes that can be done. Ideally, they'd be done in person, but they're looking at, of course, doing interactive Zoom meetings with follow-ups and such. That's still in its infantile stages, but it's moving along rapidly for county officials to become professional and maintain certification. There'll be continuing education units as well that WASAC would put together. And that exhausts the list I have thus far. Any questions or comments? No.
Sounds like you're busy.
Yep, not unlike you and Ty. There's no other commissioner items. Do you have anything, Robin? Ramiro?
No, sir.
Okay.
I can throw in the phase 3 subcommittee for the Thurston Climate Mitigation Group met again, and we're trying to narrow. TRPC is going to take the lead, but we're trying to narrow a scope of work to make sure. Apparently, they're quite a bit over budget on the TRPC is on terms of the amount of work that they put in to the phase 2 versus what they, were contracted to get paid. So Mark is being very careful about, trying to temper expectations and really hone in on what TRPC can deliver for the amount that the jurisdictions are willing to contribute, which is not set in stone, but I think the number that's been floated is like 142,000 total from the 4 jurisdictions. And so we're trying to hammer out a scope of work. Hutch, you had a question about the legislative piece, and whether or not there'd be like a paid lobbyist for the group when it came to climate bill legislation and bills, and that's not the intent. They actually revised the draft from the first one that I circulated, and it's just a little more coordinating existing staff resources, identifying legislative actions. It's not a formalized lobbying program that's going to be funded or anything like that. The question I had that I haven't, it's a good time to throw it out because we're coming up on budget and we're coming up on the climate mitigation plan, being, rolled out for the public and the jurisdictions asked to adopt. I guess Chris Hawkins has been, this is on my list to kind of follow up with Shelley and Chris. I haven't done it yet, but Chris Hawkins has been kind of our lead for the county on the climate planning and working with the mitigation plan. But I know Chris Hawkins does a lot of stuff. He does, he presents the Safe Routes to School, and he was working with the health, the Be That program down in South County, and he presents all kinds of stuff to us, the vaping ordinance and stuff. So I guess my question is going to be, as the jurisdictions coordinate on climate implementation, how much of Chris's time could be devoted to that versus his commitments to doing other things? And are we going to can we rely on Chris to do everything for the county that's going to need to be done? Or are we going to need another FTE or a half FTE or I don't know exactly what Chris's job description is and what capacity he has to take on more climate related work versus his other obligations. So that's just something I'm throwing out there. It's a topic for discussion, because if he's booked to the max, then we may, it may be a climate coordinator or something that will be asked for. I don't know. Maybe Chris can just step up, and maybe it's each jurisdiction. That's kind of one of the things we're looking at is if each jurisdiction in phase 3 commits to half an FTE, maybe Chris has that capacity to spend half his time on climate coordination. That's just an issue for further discussion, I think, probably in the next couple of months.
Yeah, he is quite stretched with all that he does. Tomorrow, I have, are you going to come back to us with that then, when you get more information after you speak with him?
Yeah, I will. I'll keep reporting back on that. We have another meeting. So we honed the draft and we're looking at it again. And we're going to do one more meeting before presenting some sort of draft to the Thurston Climate Mitigation Steering Committee that Commissioner Edwards sits on in November. So you can expect to see that in late November, whatever the subcommittee comes up with.
Okay. Tomorrow at noon, I'm sitting on at the Mayor's Forum. So it's all the mayors, and at least the big 3 mayors, the big cities rather. And so my question to you, commissioners, is there an agenda item you'd like me to bring up, or is there something you'd like to know from the city's perspective, or me to pass on to them from our perspective? Okay.
No.
Do you have an agenda that you have, Hutch? I'd be happy to, I'd be curious to hear it.
I don't have the agenda, but I received an email of something being added to the agenda, and that is allegedly being added to the agenda. It's regarding Ray Mobley from the Evergreen State College to join us tomorrow. Evergreen's looking to pick the brains of policymakers in the county for the replacement qualities of the Board of Trustees to look at for a new president. But other than that, generally we talk about a whole host of things that are hot topics in the news regarding each jurisdiction, but homelessness always comes up, of course, as a major concern in housing and such.
I'd love to hear an update from Tumwater about that whole situation with the port and mitigation side and the homeless camp sweep and all that. If there's any news there, I haven't hadn't really heard anything since that first week of it.
Is that regarding the trees being taken out and such for development?
Well, they had some folks living camped on a port property, and they swept. The sheriffs helped them sweep, and then the port and the Tumwater were looking at a potential mitigation site on a different piece of port land. And
Okay,
I'd be curious if there's been any update there.
I'll bring that up. I'll ask Pete. Okay.
Yeah.
Pete and John don't. They attend. Romero, you're in on that too?
No, it's just
Not-
among yourselves.
Just the mayor's okay. I'll ask him to report back. So we're slated to go till 11:30. We can sit here for another 34 minutes and just stare at each other, or we can call it a day unless anybody else has something else they would like to discuss.
No.
Open forum.
I think right now, I'm done.
Okay.
Hey, Ramiro, I got one. What about that email we all got from the city of Rainier?
Yeah, I follow up with that response back to the mayor. I don't know if I included your assistance on my response
I
back.
saw it, but I guess I'm just wondering, do you happen to, I mean, I know you wanted really specific requests, but do you have a general idea of what?
I have no idea what, I know they
Okay.
receive federal funds to build a bathroom, but based on the email, they are requesting for additional improvements that includes beyond the bathrooms. So, and that's what the point of my clarification email says, what is the specific request that you're looking from the county? So I really have no idea what they're looking for.
I do have a quick follow-up I could give on that.
Yeah.
I think I've been in communication with the Rainier folks over quite a period of time. And that's where the whole bathroom thing comes up for the trail. But you can't hardly have a bathroom out in the wilderness somewhere because it wouldn't survive humanity's vandalism tendencies, I guess. But they are willing, and they've known this, that we could kind of do capital construction, but we can't do maintenance hardly on that stuff. So they're very aware of that. And anything that we could do to help them accomplish benefit to that trail, whatever it might be, I think is beneficial to the county residents. And they will take care of any maintenance that's affiliated with that. And I think that's where they're coming from. Are there other things that we could help them with that if we had the capital to help them with a particular project, they would do the maintenance and whatnot, the thing that we can't do. So that's kind of what they're looking for, is anything that would enhance the recreation ability along the trail.
Yeah, Mayor Shaw stated in exactly what you stated, Commissioner Edwards. I guess my request to the mayor is how much, what is it? Because I don't think
Park impact fees is maybe what he's talking about?
I don't think the county can say yes to a capital request without having an understanding as to how much that is.
Sure,
And what's
I
to be used
understand
for?
that. Anyway, I think it can be a good partnership to enhance the trail usability as we get going. And I mean, like one of the things I expressed to on the bathroom thing, well, maybe you want to have the entrances facing the city hall, because the city hall's right there close, so we could prevent vandalism or, those kind of things. I think the county manager was looking for kind of a price tag on the whole capital project, is what I was thinking. But anyway, okay, that's it.
So that's a work in progress, and Romero will bring it back when he hears back from Mayor Shaw.
I guess maybe I can, since we're talking about South County cities, we receive a request from the city of Tenino related to I know the city of Tenino, the sheriff's office have some conversations related to the service the sheriff's office provide to the city of Tenino. I have been appraised of some of the details of that. Staff received a request from the city of Tenino asking to go through an analysis of the property tax of the within the city of Tenino and how much of that goes to law enforcement. So that we do not track property taxes on individual jurisdictions, and we do not track individual jurisdictions' contributions to specific areas of the county when you assign general fund authority. So I just responded back to the city of Tenino. You may hear that back, that there is something that we cannot entertain at this point because we don't have the resources to go through this extensive analysis as they requested. So I just responded back this morning to that, and so you may hear perhaps from your counterparts in the city of Tenino.
Thank you. And I've been tracking that with Mayor Wayne Fournier as well. All right, thank you. Anything else, Ty?
No.
All right, well, it's 11:01 hours. We're going to go ahead and end this meeting then. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Bye, Robin.